Everyone, happy Friday, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today for our live talk session in partnership with the wonderful team at Parents and Carers in Performing Arts. For those of you who haven't joined a live talks before, my name's Gabby. I'm the head of partnerships at Live, which is the voice of the UK's live music and entertainment business. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a white female with brown eyes, blondish hair, and I'm wearing a green jumper, gold jewelry, and gold-rimmed glasses. If you've not been to one of our sessions before, the Live Talks programme is a series of online workshops and talks focusing on equality, diversity, inclusion, sustainability, and well-being. They're also free to access for everyone in the hope that we can make positive change across our industry. I just need to go through a little bit of housekeeping before we start. Please feel free to keep your camera turned off and change your Zoom name to anonymous if you'd prefer, but always we'd love to see your faces throughout the session. It makes it a bit more personable. Please make sure your mic is muted throughout to avoid any interference. And if we have some time left at the end, we'll open the floor to questions. But feel free to put any questions you have in the chat and we'll do our best to pick those up throughout the session. We're also recording today's session as we make all our workshops available on our website afterwards. And that's it from me. So over to you, Cassie and Anna.
Hello, really lovely to be here today, everyone. Thank you very much. My name is Cassie Raine, and I am the co-founder, co-CEO and executive director of Parents and Carers in Performing Arts. I am a white woman in my late 40s. I've got long brown hair and brown eyes, and I'm wearing red glasses and a burgundy velvet blazer. And this is Ehnold-Danailov, who is the other PIPA co-founder. Say hello.
Hello. Yes. So I'm the other co-founder. I'm the co-CEO and the creative director of PIPA. I am a woman in her 40s, a white woman. I've got dark hair, currently up in a ponytail. I'm wearing a turquoise high neck jumper, and because it's a bit cold, a grey cardigan, which I might take off once I warm up. And I'm really delighted to be here with everybody.
So I'll just start with a little bit about who we are for those of you who don't know, and to give you a bit of background before we kind of get into the meat of talking about carers. So Parents and Carers in Performing Arts supports organisations across the UK to implement effective strategies to ensure they are able to attract and retain a diverse and flexible workforce inclusive of carers and parents. My background is actually as an actor, and Anna's background as a director. We focus our work specifically in theatre, music, and dance. For the last 5-6 years, really, we've kind of been in theatre, and then over the last couple of years, we've moved more and more into dance and music, which I'll get to in a little bit. I think one of the things that's really important is that when we first started, there was no data about parents and carers. In fact, it wasn't really a subject; it wasn't talked about. So we set about trying to find out. There was a lot of anecdotal evidence, and actually, even for carers, this is still the case today. It's not really talked about, and there's not a great deal of awareness. But what we realised is that in order to make the case for support, we needed data, we needed hard facts, and we needed to be able to demonstrate the impact on individuals and then the impact on the industry of if we don't support this kind of group of people. So we started collecting data in 2018, or that was our benchmark survey, Balancing Act. In 2018, we've just done the second iteration of that this year, and the findings from that will be published in March this year. So from the first one in 2018, it covered music, dance and theatre, and the kind of top line findings of that one are that 76% of carers regularly turn down work. That's parents and carers. But what we found in all our iterations over the time, and in music, is that it's freelancers who miss the most work. It's freelancers and female carers who miss the most work. And actually that goes up to 8 out of 10 mothers and female carers miss work on a regular basis due to caring responsibilities. In 2018, we had a £3,000 pay penalty. So that means that people who have caring responsibilities take home £3,000 less a year than those who don't have caring responsibilities. That again is significantly higher for freelancers, up to £12,000 in music. So we found in classical music specifically, there's a £12,000 pay penalty for mothers and female carers. We also identified that people are leaving the industry because of their caring responsibilities. So 4 out of 10 leaving the industry, and many more thinking about leaving the industry. And I think COVID, so since we did that research in 2018, there's been COVID, and then the cost of living crisis, and our understanding is that the number of people looking at other options is increasing on the daily. But we'll see when the findings come through from this balancing act what that looks like. So our research consistently shows that parents and carers struggle to continue their careers. Unsurprisingly, women are disproportionately impacted, and those from a lower socioeconomic background, but also people who are also disabled. Caring responsibilities cuts across all protected characteristics, and increasingly we're seeing that if people are already facing barriers to work for other reasons, caring responsibilities can exacerbate that. So for many people, if they have kind of had to really fight to stay in the industry, if it's been really hard work, and then they take on caring responsibilities on top of that, for lots of people, it's just a nail in the coffin, and they can't overcome that. And again, that's particularly women, those with additional barriers to work. So the way that we work in Parents and Carers in Performing Arts, we have 2 programs, Foundations and the PIPA Charter Programme, and we work with organisations in response to the research that we've identified, to strategise to find ways of supporting parents and carers in the workplace, people who are employed, who are self-employed, who are on stage, off stage, backstage, management at every single level. And many of the strategies that we kind of work with organisations on are not paid for. They're devised by the industry, and they can be adapted and adopted for organisations of all scales and sizes. And music is very interesting. It's a phenomenally diverse sector, so we're continually looking at what our offer is to music organisations and how we can kind of tailor what we do to meet those needs. In terms of PIPA, where PIPA is with music, we conducted a piece of research in classical music last year called the Bittersweet Symphony, and as a result of that, we're bringing together music organisations to develop our offer and to onboard orchestras and opera companies initially to take part in our programmes, then also looking at what our offer is for the wider sector. And we have just recruited our first music development and relationship manager lead, which is Catherine Williams. So we're really excited to be moving forward with that agenda in music. So next slide, please, Anna. So we're here to talk about carers, and this is an area that has much, over the last few years, I think the profile of parenting responsibilities has really grown. Awareness of those needs, of what that looks like, of what the challenges are, has kind of gathered momentum and awareness. But for carers, it's a very different picture, and we'll see as we go through the presentation, that it's often invisible, and it's extremely challenging for individuals. And there aren't currently, there's a need for increased awareness and then support systems and strategies. So what I thought I would just share or start with talking about what an unpaid carer is. So that is basically, it's someone who cares for someone who is ill, disabled, older, has mental health concerns, or is experiencing addiction and is not paid by a local authority to take that caring role. So most often that tends to be a family member or friend. It can also be somebody who receives carer's allowance, but they are still an unpaid carer. So I brought 3 different examples of carers. So the first one that you can see on the slide is Tara McGee. She is with her brother and sister in the car, and she is the primary carer for her brother and sister. Tara is a 21-year-old actor and musician and singer based in Glasgow. We first met Tara at a carers cafe that we ran in Scotland, and she had come along to this caring cafe. And what was interesting was that she hadn't realised until she was in that space with us that she is essentially a carer. She said that she'd never regarded herself as a carer because she just thought that caring for your family was normal and got on with it. But then she said that the more that she started to think about it and talk about it, the more that she realized she'd been juggling those caring responsibilities ever since she could remember, and and the impact that was potentially having on her career, on trying to kind of get her foot in the door. So the second person in the middle there is Catherine Hopper, who is a musician, and we're going to post a blog from Catherine on our website. And I've actually got a clip from that blog I'm going to just read out for you. So she says, I've got 3 kids, boys who are 11, 9 and 5. And I'm a double carer for my mother, who is 87 and has a very rare degenerative condition called PSP. That is progressive supranuclear palsy. She was diagnosed last October. Prior to that, had a whole series of unfortunate events which rendered her really sort of vulnerable and helpless. The pandemic really coincided with my mother's deterioration. I had taken on a maternity cover teaching post, and my mum had suddenly got taken to hospital with an emergency appendectomy, and she had been showing signs of something very odd. Basically, she got taken into hospital, and I had to virtually that day give up my teaching and performing because I couldn't get her out of the hospital without having a care plan in place. But I couldn't get a care plan in place because it was an emergency situation. Carers have to have 3 weeks' notice. Since then, I've been looking after her, putting carers in place, putting all the systems in place, and dealing with the paperwork. So the third one is a picture of my brother Sam and his wife Lucy. So Sam and Lucy got married last year. Earlier this year, sorry. And the year before, Lucy was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. And it's been really interesting for me to really just witness the kind of the chaos, the tension, the chaos, the unpredictability, all the kind of stress that they face as a family. And then obviously they have children who are also in the mix. And I think what I've been most struck by is how when something happens as a carer, you just have to kind of drop everything and you have to be there. You have to be at the hospital. You have to be here. If there is a person who is dependent on you for their well-being and care, you have to prioritize that. And it's often unpredictable and inconsistent and just really challenging. And I think what really struck me when we were preparing for this webinar is actually just how many real life examples we came across, we could pull from our own relations and friends, and just how diverse. And there's a statistic which is that 65% of us will take on care responsibilities at one point or other in our life. And for many, especially women, that can often be what we call sandwich caring responsibilities, which is where you have children and you care for a family member, an older or disabled or ill family member at the same time. So you've got care responsibilities on both sides, which can be really difficult to juggle. And Anna is going to share some data on carers in general in the UK.
Thank you, Cassie. Yes, so it's really striking, and I think what Cassie said, to put that into perspective, anybody could become a carer at some point in their lives, and many carers, as Cassie's already pointed out, don't actually know or identify themselves as a carer because it's just what they do. They look after their loved ones, and it might be for a short period of time because of illness or of an accident, or it might be for a longer time, be it for an aging parent or disabled family member. And Carers UK have they've done great research, and have recently just launched their new report as well. And I thought it was striking to know that the ONS census data suggests that there are 5.7 million carers across the UK. That means that there's apparently around 9% of people who are providing unpaid care. But some of the research, because as we said, not everybody identifies or has is openly registered as a carer, the number could actually be as high as 10.6 million. That's what Carers UK are estimating that the number of carers across the UK is. 59% of those unpaid carers are women, as Cassie said, many of whom are sandwich carers, and it is increasingly becoming clear women are just more likely to become carers and to provide more hours of unpaid care than men, and it's more so at an age where they are still that they're providing this high intensity care when they're actually still expected to be in paid work. So it is very likely that they are still working and providing care. That said, 1 in 7 people in the workplace in the UK are currently juggling work and care. That means that it's very likely that someone in your company, in your organization, is a carer. Somebody might be caring for somebody and doesn't know that they're actually a carer. And it's even more likely that someone will become a carer. And working and caring, Cassie just given an insight into some of the stories. It's a juggle. Carers UK in this recent survey found that 75% of carers who are in employment worry about continuing to juggle their work and care because it is so demanding and it has an effect on their work. And 40% of those already gave up work to be able to provide care, and another 22% actually reduced their working hours in order to be able to provide care. So that's a huge percentage. It's more than half, 62%, who are already changing the way they work just to be able to give unpaid care. And I think it's just important to remember in this sort of cost of living crisis and all these pressures that are on every family at the moment, 75% of those unpaid carers, and that includes those who receive carers allowance, are already struggling with the pressures of the cost of living crisis, be it financial, be it being able to afford the care or afford the essentials. So many are cutting down on food or on heating. So it's affecting their life and their well-being, and not only the well-being of the people that they care for. Obviously, Pippa has got some findings around this as well. Cassie will share a little bit about that.
So in our first bit of research that we did, actually, in 2016, it was really clear to us that these are, you know, that these are invisible caring responsibilities, and so we started to call them this group of people hidden carers. We found that, first of all, we found that people were not being asked about their caring related needs. So 75 or nearly 75, nearly 3/4 of the people who we asked about who were carers had not been asked about their caring responsibilities, and just under a quarter had. And why that's important is because they are much less likely to come forward and express their needs, or to confide in their employer, or to ask for adjustments to their working pattern, because there isn't really a shared language around this, and it's an incredibly difficult situation to be in, and then it's an incredibly difficult situation to try and communicate, especially if you don't know what's available to you. And a bit later on, Anna's going to talk about how as an employer you can communicate what is available for carers, and what support, what mechanisms you need in place to be able to identify if these people, who has caring responsibilities within your organization. The other thing we asked people is, we asked about how much work people were missing and how frequently they were missing work because of caring responsibility. And we had some statistics earlier about parents and carers missing work. One of the things that we identified is that people with care responsibilities for those other than children were the most likely to miss the greatest amount of work and the least likely to communicate anything about it. Consequently, they were the most likely to just drop out of the workforce altogether. So it's a small group of people, but it's an increasing group of people. And as we become, as the population ages, we become an increasingly aged and large population, that is only going to get higher, that figure, unless we get these interventions in place now. Anna.
So let's look at the rights that carers have, because as an employer, it's really important to know what the rights of carers are, and also to be able to advise carers on these rights. But also, some of you might be carers yourself, and what we quite often find is that people don't even know what is in place for them. So firstly, and it should be obvious, all statutory rights apply to any carer, and a carer should not be disadvantaged at work or treated less favorably than anybody without caring commitments. And that's protected under the Equality Act of 2010. And it means that if you look after an older or disabled person, the law protects you against discrimination or harassment because of your caring responsibilities. And understanding this right can be useful if a carer feels that they've been treated unfairly at work because of their caring role. As a carer, you have the right to request flexible working, which can be key to help juggling work with caring responsibilities. And by law, everybody has the right to make a flexible working request. if they work for an employer for at least 26 weeks, you must be classed legally as an employee, and you can only make an application for flexible working once every year. But, and that's a big but, the government has confirmed that there's going to be changes to it. I'm going to talk about this in a minute again. But the government has confirmed that from next year, there is going to be a day one right to request flexible working, and there's going to be a bit more flexibility for the employee given for flexible working, including that they can actually make 2 applications. But for now, it's only 1. A carer has has the right to request time off for dependents. Any employee has the right to request to take time off to deal with an emergency involving someone who relies on their help. This could include their partner, their spouse, their child parent, or anybody else who depends on them. But whether this time off is paid or not, that's at the discretion of the employer. So, and examples of what is classed as a care emergency could include many different things. It could mean that your usual care arrangements have fallen through, that you need to deal with an incident that involves a child during school hours, for example, or a dependent falls ill, might have been assaulted or has been in an accident. But you can also do it in order to in order to make long-term arrangements for a dependent who is ill or injured. But you can't take it to provide long-term care. So if it's, for example, somebody needs to be taken to hospital, or you need to have this meeting with the care home to put a long-term plan in place. And of course, it's also there if you need to deal with the death of a dependent. What's important to remember that these examples often happen unexpectedly. So therefore, it's really important that an organization has time off for dependent policy already in place, that then also outlines the simple procedures, how to access it, because it reduces the stress in the moment when you are in that emergency, to figure out how you actually can get your time off for dependents. The other things that are in place for carers, if you are over 18 and you provide this unpaid care for someone, you are entitled to a carer's assessment. And it doesn't matter how much or what kind of care you provide. Just so you know, in Scotland, this is referred as an adult carer support plan, and in Wales it's called something different. It's called the carer's needs assessment. So different names but similar things. And this is really an assessment form that is there to help carers get some assistance with their caring roles. And that could include advice about benefits. It could even be practical help with housework. It could be to get some training with the new caring role. So, for example, if your family member has become immobile and you need to learn how to move them or how to handle the person that you care for. But it could also help to secure equipment or alterations to the home, or even just to provide some breaks from caring, as well as getting some emotional support like counseling or support to improve your well-being. Again, this is not something that the employer does, but it's there. So for an employer, it's very useful to advise carers on that. Also, as a carer, if you provide this unpaid care, you can ask your GP practice to be identified as a carer on your actual patient record. And that then helps being put forward for the priority of vaccines and all the other public health campaigns that might be in place. As a carer, you should be offered a free flu jab. because you might put the person that you are caring for at risk to become ill. And you are also part of the priority group to access the COVID booster jab, at least for this winter. Obviously, going forwards, we need to see. And lastly, it's also just good to know that as a carer, as a carer for a person who might be in hospital, the hospital must identify and consult with you when they're discharging the person from hospital, because this is important for the carer to actually being able to prepare for any potential transition or next steps that might need to be put in place, especially if the care is then supposed to be home care for the person that is coming out of hospital. So these are the rights that carers have at the moment, and as Cassie already alluded to it, there are two new things that are really important for an employer to know and that are great news for carers. So these new employment laws have been passed and they will come into effect next year, and it could be as early as April 2024. So it's really good as an employer to be prepared for that. The first one, the Employment Relation Act, I already mentioned. It's also called the Flexible Working Act. Again, it affects everyone. So with this act, anyone, including the unpaid carers, will be able to ask their employers for changes of their working hours, the times they work, or the places that they work from day one of employment. And that's really important. It means that when a carer applies for a new position, on the first day of the first day at work, they can ask for flexible working, i.e. changes to the way that they are contracted to work. They can now also request, put in 2 requests a year, not only 1, which is really important, because before it was only once every 12 months, which for a carer is a very, very long time when you need to change something almost immediately. Also, what's really important to know is that employers are now required to consider any request, and they have to give a reason before they reject it, which is something that wasn't there before. And the obligation that was previously on the employee to explain like what effects the changes could have on the employer is now scrapped. But so that the employee now doesn't have to explain to the employer how these what solutions they might have in place in order to mitigate the impact that their flexible working request might have on the company. This means that organizations really need to, employers really need to understand flexible working, how to make it better work, and how it could positively impact their company in order to grant it. The second act is specific for carers, and that is a fantastic achievement, which is the Carers Leave Act. So this new law entitles carers in employment to 1 week, or specifically 5 days, of unpaid leave to support those they care for. They can have 5 days every year. And carers leave will be available to all employees from day one, again, of their employment, meaning that the carers will be supported regardless of how long they worked with their employer. The good news is that they can take the leave flexibly to suit their caring responsibility, so they don't have to take it 5 days in a row, or they can basically take it, if they want to, they can take 5 days in a row, or they can take it sporadically. And they also don't need to provide evidence how this leave is actually being used, or who they're going to use it for. So there is no justification that is needed. They can basically use it to arrange care. They could use it to provide care, but also to rest and recover, which I think for a carer and from knowing the impact it has on their well-being is is huge. Cassie.
That's great, Anna. Thank you. Thanks for sharing all of that with us. It's a huge breakthrough, I think, the Carers Leave Act, and it's gonna have a real impact in the workplace and for employers. So the next slide is about, I mean, it's about the benefit to employers of supporting this community. I mean, obviously there is the moral and ethical side of it, but there is also a business case for supporting carers and parents. Carers Leave supports retention and recruitment, as well as health and well-being of staff with care responsibilities. So research has shown that employers who offer carers leave say that they've been able to better retain valued staff. And for me, this is really pertinent because, you know, at Pippa, we recently did a kind of cost analysis of the cost of recruitment of new staff. And I mean, for us, for a tiny organization with less than 10 staff members, it's 15 grand. No, and that's a huge amount of money, and especially when you're losing kind of talent that you've invested in years of training and support, and then that just kind of walk out of the door, when unnecessarily so, if interventions and support are put in place. Research also shows that 2/3 of working carers who have taken unpaid carers leave report that this has made their caring role easier, whereas without access to it, 1 in 10 are at risk of reducing their hours or giving up work, as we said earlier. Also, you know, as we said, the caring workforce is on the rise, and it's crucial that we find effective ways to support their engagement and retention. And not all of those interventions are going to be expensive or costly. They require thought and you know, an analysis, and often it's about presenting options. So we find this with parents and carers, that every situation is different. And it might be that what works for one person doesn't work for another person. But as an employer, it's really important to have a range of tools, have a range of resources where you can meet people on their terms, and, you know, offer, well, we can't do that on this occasion, but we could do this, or we could do that. And oftentimes, if you're prepared as an employer and you're on the front foot, you're going to know what's possible when the person who's in that situation isn't going to know themselves, because they're steeped in the situation, and the onus really is on us as employers to be ready and able to support people. Anna's going to talk about some of the ways that we advocate through our program.
Thank you. So it was really interesting. We've done a lot of work with employers of how to support caring responsibilities in many different ways, and as Cassie said, some of these not at an additional cost. And I found some from the caring, the State of Caring survey from Carers UK, of a sort of overall what carers had said helped them in employment, and it's just so it is literally the same from what we find in music and in dance and in theatre. So the highest one is having an understanding line manager, followed by flexible working, followed by actually working from home either some of the time or most of the time, and this recognition from an employer that they have a caring role. And then the last one was to reduce some working hours. And these are all things that employers can help with. And the first one is open communication. Talk to your carers, find out who your carers are, because carers might be really nervous about coming forward themselves and disclosing that they have caring responsibilities. Firstly, because it's very hard to talk about something caring, because it's not always it's not as straightforward, or sometimes even cute as a child can be. But there is also a real fear of repercussions on their employment. And also carers' responsibilities and their situations are very different, and they're likely to change over time. So establishing and maintaining these open lines of communications where carers can discuss how their caring responsibilities are impacting their life and what support or work practice adaptation would be beneficial is really important. This can be obviously done through the monitoring forms, through staff surveys, but also in one-to-ones and Teams meetings. We've heard that many carers are hidden, and it can be hard to discuss this aspect. So establishing these easy and safe routes in your team to open up about their personal situation is really important. Sometimes offering a forum or even a network for carers. We've seen that in some of our organizations. We've got coffee mornings, carers mornings, where anybody is invited to come for a cup of tea and just talk about how things are going. It can really help. We at Pippa, we have our Monday morning meetings, for example, where we every Monday morning everybody shares a little bit about their personal life, and it could be anything from where they've been over the weekend, but also how something has impacted their sleep pattern maybe, or what's on their mind at the moment because of something that has happened at home. And as I said, there's also, of course, the informal one-to-ones with managers. Understanding what someone is going through at the moment it is really important to understand how the work will be affected and what you as a manager can do in order to support and also help that whatever the workload is actually being managed and delivered. Another really useful tool to establish these lines of communication is the Carers Passport scheme. So this scheme provides a framework for exactly these kind of conversations. It records the information of the carer, and that means, because it's recorded and it stays with the carer, so if they would go from organization to organization, or they have different managers at time, they don't have to constantly repeat and have the same conversations, which are sometimes really hard to have. But it's already written down and is like a profile that they have and that they can share. The scheme itself also provides the organizations with some resources and some routes of basically having these conversations. We can put the link in later on as well if anybody's interested. It's Carers Passports UK. And then, of course, as you can see, the second highest one, there's flexible working, and that is a key practice to support those with caring responsibilities to manage work and caring demands. You can see here, Carers UK found that 53% of carers who are employees said that flexible working helps them to balance work and care. And flexibility can come in many forms. It could be different start or finish times. It could be shorter days, or sometimes even longer days in order to make another day shorter. It could be part-time work or even job shares. As part of this, you should also think about alternative session times, maybe. When does somebody have to be at a place? What time does somebody have to perform or rehearse? at Pippa, just so you know, we have got an array of resources to support employers with flexible working. We've got how-to guides, we've got sample policies, we've got analysis tools, as well as those industry case studies to identify the flexible working models and help implement models that are actually suitable to the organization. And part of this is also then remote working, because it's part of flexibility. So it's interesting, isn't it? Because during COVID, many organizations found these new ways of working that enabled remote access, meetings, interviews, even workshops. Today, we're all remote. All these engagement events, they can be held remotely, and they make it easier for people with care responsibilities to engage and to be part of it. It makes a world of difference, because otherwise they might not be able to participate in the important discussions on a decision-making process, or be part of a career development opportunity that is there. So obviously we are a completely remote working company, and we understand the needs and demands of the on-site working as well, because obviously that's where we work. So we have developed a remote working toolkit to support employers with the whole ins and outs of remote working and of hybrid working, which we can help. So if anybody's got any questions around this, get in touch. What's also important is to remember that finding elder care can be really difficult and very expensive. And that's why forward planning and knowing key dates in advance and times is important to anyone who's managing care and work, because it helps them to be able to plan ahead, to arrange for alternative care provision. Some of our organizations that we work with, they have a Pippa pot in place, which is a ring-fenced budget that can then support anybody with any additional costs of care. And this could include additional hours, or out of hours care that might be needed. But it could also mean a bit more contribution towards the additional travel costs that make it easier for a carer to go to join an event, or to be somewhere live, or even go on tour by just by maybe taking a faster but more expensive means of transport, like the faster train, or having to take a taxi to somewhere rather than the bus or walk. And last, but definitely not least, something that we've been trying to advocate throughout here, is supporting carers by helping them identify the support that might be available to them from the outside. We've heard that many unpaid carers don't recognize themselves as such, and they don't know what their rights are, and they don't know what's in place in the organization that they work for. So it would be really useful to help anybody to signpost them to the GP, to the charities that are out there, to the government support that is there, as well as guide them to the policies that you as an employer already have in place, and help connect with any of the local and national support networks that are there. Carers UK have got a lot of these on their website as well, so it's a very good place to start. Right, that was a lot from us, but I'm gonna stop here. Should we just I need a breath, but should we share the film first and then go to questions?
Gabby, what do you think? We haven't got a huge amount of time left. What do you reckon?
We've got so Cassie and Anna have got this kind of 3-minute clip to watch about experiences of being a carer. We could try and play it here, but sometimes I think the sound can be quite funny on Zooms. Do you have access to share it, Cassie? Or do you need
to share, if you want to try and share it from your don't think my internet's up to it, I'm afraid.
Okay, let me have a go, and if the sound's rubbish, then we'll just post it in the chat, and everyone can watch it after. Hang on. Let me just.
It's a film by Carers UK, and British Gas. It's a few years old, but they shared it at a symposium we did a few years ago.
Right, can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, let me see if give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down with the sound.
Yeah, I'm going to show you how it works, if that's okay. Sure. Yeah, sure. So you're going to see on the screen here, and you're just my face. You're just basically me. Yeah.
Yeah. I can hear it, but I can't actually see the video moving.
Okay. All right, I think then best for me to post this in the chat.
Yep. No, that's something, but yes, maybe we'll post it in the chat.
And just a word of warning, I definitely blubbed to it this morning, so everyone prepare.
It's really good. It's a really good film, and it's 3 minutes long, and it's a very clever way of communicating the carer experience, what it looks like and what it is. So if you've got three minutes, do definitely check it out.
We've got some time for questions though. So does anyone have any questions? Thank you so much, Cassie. Now that was really insightful. I hope everyone's found parts of that or all of it really useful and can take that back into their kind of working lives, whether you're a carer or have employees that are carers themselves. But yeah, does anyone have any questions for Cassie or Anna?
Or experiences of support from your organization. We're always interested in hearing how carers are supported, any examples of best practice, or any examples of what you might need, or how we can, what you would like to see change in the industry.
Yeah, I would, if that's okay. On behalf of my company and not the Agents Association, but yeah, we have a 27-year-old employee who, in her first year of working with us, her mum went into the attic and fell out of the attic and broke her back, and that's rendered her with life-changing, debilitating problems and various other complications along the way. Yeah, clearly she had a partner, but the relationship there had split, and mum really relied on Rebecca, our employee, and therefore we really worked with her over the last 7 years, and flexible working. We've changed our hours. We've all sorts of things. We've spent hours chatting, boxes of tissues, just the whole thing really. And as a team, not just myself, we've supported her, and I think if she was here today, she'd really speak up and say how that's just enabled her to continue with her career within the industry as an agent. And I think she'd be very, very thankful. But we're also very grateful as an organisation, that she's managed to balance the two, and it's not always been easy, but she's done it and we've done it, and I think that's the case. It's never easy, and it's very easy to either party really to give up, I think, or find excuses to perhaps give people notice, employees notice, and that's not the way forward. The way forward is definitely to support and encourage carers within our industry and any industry. I think all employers should certainly take it on themselves to support their workers. So yeah, that's just my experience.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's brilliant to hear, and what it really shows is that how you value your employee and what they bring, and that investment comes back as well. You know, like I know from when, you know, the people that we work with, is it's a give and take from both, so that, you know, the value and showing them that you care and that you want them to continue to work, and working around there will also mean that they will try and bring their very best to work, which is an investment for your own company, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and it's not within the agency or within the entertainment industry. It's never a 9 to 5, you know. And we like to think it's some of us like to think it's a 9 to 5, but it really isn't. And so, and neither is caring. You know, caring's not 9 to 5 either. So it does take a lot of working out and juggling, I think, to do it. But it's possible, you know. And we're only a small organisation with you know 6 employees. So sometimes that's even more difficult, you know, because we've all got specific roles and specific clients and things. So it you know, it can be difficult, but it's achievable.
Brilliant, thank you.
Anyone else?
I just want to apologise for being so horribly late. I'm Louise from Academy Music Group Venues and Live Nation. So Gabby very thankfully has told me this is being recorded to watch. So I'm going to watch that, Gabby, because I probably do have many things to say about this as somebody who's been through caring for somebody for 15 years and being at work. And I think the biggest thing to say is I think that the biggest feeling is not saying anything, because I'm going back a long time, and you might be scared you might lose your job or something like that. I think the approach and knowing that it is okay, that was never a thing. I'm talking quite a long time ago. Now it is. So I think for companies, how we can have that messaging within our own organizations, that you can talk to me anonymously. You know, even thinking about it now, I could probably burst into tears, and that's always the most embarrassing part, that as you start to think about it, it's very emotional immediately. So I think I'm really looking forward to watching this and see what takeouts I've missed of the presentation. So thank you very much for arranging. I think it's great.
Thank you for sharing as well. I think it's really important to remember that as well. Caring is not something that you do and then it's done, right? It's something that you carry your whole life with you, and it doesn't quite often, the effects of it, they stay with us for a long time, and they will affect how we then react to certain moments. We can be triggered, but also how we fight for certain things. I think it's very important to reflect that. Was there anything that helped you or that you found specifically very unhelpful in that time?
I think now the many benefits that I think it brings is I feel like I can identify now in my own team. I've got a team of 17 that I think when you tell them your own experience, they go, "Oh my God, that happened to you." They're you know, because everybody knows me, I quite have a lot to say on a few things because I run quite a big department. That they're really shocked when they say that happened to you, which I always find quite extraordinary. But hopefully, then I have 2 of my own team today who, you know, one's mother is dying and so on, and you can identify it. And I think it actually makes you stronger to be able to help other people within the place, because I still feel that of you know, even just saying I need to leave earlier or something, and just how that's approached. It's good to see so many businesses. I know our own at Academy Music Live Nation, it's very supportive in many ways. I think there's a couple of people on from here, but just knowing that you can, or where to go. And I think the signposting, one of the biggest things was when things do happen to you, you know, if you go to a GP, automatically they'll go, "Oh, well, you need to go on antidepressants or something else. But finding I found the best person in by being signposted in CBT, because I'd walk in this room and somebody would say, "How are you?" And I think, "Oh my God, they know what I've been doing all weekend. I've been wiping somebody's backside," you know. And of course they don't. They're just going, "Hi, Louise, how are you?" Rather than that feeling, you start to retreat a little bit for fear that they're going to ask you a question, and being able to flip your brain around into work mode can be quite difficult, you know. So I think being signposted, those things of when you go to the end of caring for somebody for that many years and they die, because that is quite often what happens, what is available for you. It's not just, "Oh, I need bereavement counselling." It might mean to be able to deal with coming back into work, of somebody saying, "How are you?" And you know, that I feel like I will always say saved my life. What that man did for me in 6 weeks to get me to be able to go, I'm great. You know, so I just think if that's useful for anybody else, I can only go by personal experience, but knowing that in the workplace you can be signposted to what because everything is unique and individual of how somebody might be caring for someone. If there's a selection almost there of what it is, just not, oh my God, that's awful. It's okay, what are we going to do to get you through that today? So that's where I would go with this once I've watched this wonderful thing.
Thank you. That's a fantastic reflection as well. And
I think,
very good to
Louise, I
think
just wanted to say, like what you touched on there is also is about role modeling and communication. And I think that for me, or for anyone, I think the more that we talk about this, the more that we can kind of say, yeah, that's my experience, this has happened to me, and the more open we can be. You know, it's a bit like I had cancer and nobody really talks about it, but actually if you just say it, then you know, then you don't know who's in that space with you. So you have to kind of just live your truth, you know, to the extent that you're comfortable with. And that thing about messaging and inclusion and communication, people need to know that it's safe for them to come forward. So what does that look like? What is required so that someone thinks, do you know what? I think I could say that in that space. You know, I just it's slightly different, but we were thinking, you know, inclusive recruitment. So having a statement on your website about, you know, what you welcome and how you operate, anything to kind of promote that. I think it's really important. But role modeling is super important.
Totally agree. Yeah, absolutely. But often it takes these things to experience them, to be aware of them, isn't it? I think you only know when something happens to you that you're like, oh, it's not just me.
Yeah.
But yeah, by talking about it, I think workplaces are now, and we're talking about so many things, and thanks to groups like this, we're going the right way, I think. So yeah.
Right, I'm slightly aware we've gone a little bit over, which is fine. Thank you so much for all sticking around. Cassie, Anna, do you have anything else you want to say before we kind of finish the session?
Maybe just I just realized we haven't shared it, but if you want to get in touch with us, should we quickly put our emails? Cassie, could you type the emails whilst I speak into the chat? That would be brilliant. So you can find obviously more information about Pippa, about our charity on our website, which is pippacampaign.org. One word. And there's my email, Anna@pippacampaign, Cassie is Cassie@pippacampaign, very easy. And obviously also, you know, you can find us on social media. We'd love to hear from you. So it's just an invitation to reach out to us and share maybe your experience, as well as talk about, you know, your organization and what you're doing or what you could be doing and how we could help you.
Yeah, I think we have a ton of resources and case studies and kind of experience to share. So if you have any questions, or if you need anything, or if you're interested in kind of looking at this further in your organization, you know, we've got a range of things that are available. You know, please do get in touch.
Amazing. Thanks so much. Thank you, Cassie. Thanks, Anna, for such a brilliant session.
Thanks for having us.
Hope to see you all at